Hello everyone, welcome to yet another episode of Polity Quick Revision series. In this video, we'll talk about a very important chapter, and that is the salient features of our Indian Constitution. Here we'll take a look at the sources of borrowal of different kind of features of our Constitution, some interesting questions from this chapter, and many more such things that are important for a quick revision. So without any further delay, let's get started.
Parts of your book, you will see salient features of your Constitution. Do you see this in your book? Please open your Laxmikanth. In my old edition, it is chapter number 3. Okay, chapter number 3. Do you see it in chapter number 3? Is that chapter number 3 for you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so in this, thank you. So what are the salient features of a constitution? If I say, there are certain features of a constitution, what are the first things that strike you? The first thing that strikes me is that Indian constitution is unlike many other constitution. It is sort of unique. It is unique. Okay, and another important thing is that it's the lengthiest one. Okay, making your polity even harder. Right, but there are probably reasons why it was made lengthy. Right? See, the idea of a constitution is that we provide you with a framework and a philosophy that should be in place. In and around this, what this allows for the governments that come and go, okay, they can rule according to the principles that are given in our constitution. Now they believe that these principles that we have fought for, okay, some liberal sort of principles that they have fought for, okay, this has to be set in stone. Okay, set in stone to a certain extent that in case you want to amend it, you can amend it. But if it is set in stone here, then the governance of the country, okay, the people's minds, right, the philosophy of the nation, all of these things will revolve around these. Okay, so even in a constitution way back in 1950, when the constitution came about, they had already set many of these principles. Okay, fundamental rights is given. Okay, how many fundamental rights? We have a lot of fundamental rights. Okay, nobody can take away secularism from us. Nobody can take away, let us say, your power and your sort of rights to preserve your language, script, and culture. Imagine how many languages were there and how many languages are becoming extinct. So many languages in India are extinct. So many languages in India are also, getting endangered. Just one second. I'll just a second. I have to mute my WhatsApp. Okay, there you go. Done? Okay. So salient features. Okay, if you go to this particular chapter, you will see lengthiest. Okay, and it seems like a lot of features have been borrowed features. Okay, in fact, this is one of the criticism as well. It is cut, copy, paste. And there is a reason for this as well. So the cut, copy, paste is why? Why is it a cut, copy, paste? It is a borrowed constitution or a patchwork sort of constitution. It does not contain anything new. Okay, but this is sort of an unfair or a illogical sort of a complaint. This is because the framers of the constitution, they sort of, whatever principles they saw was good in other constitutions, right? In your Britain, in your England, USA, Russia, France, Germany, all of these things, they've taken what they have believed to be good, but they've also modified them according to what is suitable for Indian needs, Indian conditions. Okay, so it is sort of, all modified to our needs. Again, similarly, it is sort of rigid, it is flexible. Okay, there is federalism, but it is not proper federalism. Okay, center is still quite strong. Okay, now that is, so that's why it is called as quasi-federal. Okay, or federal in form, but unitary in spirit. Things like that. Parliamentary form of the government. We've not gone for presidential form. Okay, and independent and integrated sort of a judiciary. See, so all of these. Okay, so this is what is given in this chapter. So when you get a chance, have you guys read this chapter? Do you think you're confident about this chapter? If you have, then let's try out some questions. Okay, so which one of the following schedules in the Constitution of India incorporates the salaries, allowances, and of members of Parliament and chairman of the deputy chairman and the deputy chairman of the Rajya Sabha, the speaker and the deputy speaker of your Lok Sabha? So basically, in your legislative body, right? The number 1, number 2. Okay, just think of it like that. Okay, your speaker and deputy speaker, or your chairman and the deputy chairman in the Rajya Sabha. You will see them, sort of trying to manage the conversations that are going, the debates and, dialogue in the house. So which one of these schedules are going to be dealing with your salaries and allowances? All of you, please take a guess. Let's take a poll.
So for salary and allowances have been mentioned in Schedule 2, I guess.
Okay, and who was this?
Manvi.
Okay, Manvi, wonderful. Manvi, okay, so I guess you just logged in. Okay, wonderful. So it is neither of these. Okay, neither of these. And now, why did I ask you this particular question? Thank you so much, Manvi, for participating, by the way. Just take a look at this. Go to page number 10 of this chapter. Right, I told you, right, there are many chapters here. Sorry, many tables here. Not every table is equally important. There are some tables that are a lot more important than certain tables. So this particular table is of importance to you. Okay, it is of importance, quite a bit of importance. Okay, so take a look at this. It is table number 3.3 in my book. So what comes in your first schedule? What comes under your second schedule? What comes under your third schedule, fourth, fifth, sixth? Okay, all the way till your 12th schedule. Now think about this. Fifth schedule is something that I think we talked about in the very first session. Fifth schedule talks about your scheduled areas. Okay, and scheduled areas deal with certain states. Okay, 10 or 11 states. I believe that including Telangana, it is 10 states in which you have. How do you have a little bit of how to sort of govern areas with tribal population, so that we can provide them with certain amount of autonomy to govern their own affairs. When we talk about seventh schedule is something that is it deals with basically powers of your union, your states, okay, and the concurrent list. So in the constitution itself, the powers of the state, the center, and the shared powers have already been incorporated in the constitution itself. When we talk about ninth schedule is important because once, in fact, they had asked a mains question. I think it was in 2016. There was a question about ninth schedule. However, it was asked indirectly. I think it was Coelho case, something Coelho case. Okay, and it was like, I think the first few, it's a 10 marker or 12 and a half marker or something like that in this one. So basically, what is the point here? See, there was during post-independence period, when we wanted land reforms or a right to property was still a fundamental right. So we cannot take excess land away from people who owned a lot of land so that we can open it up for redistribution. So there was a case that opened up, Golaknath case. Now,
Jamindari systems.
yeah. So that's good. So who mentioned that? That is wonderful. So because you mentioned that, I'll go into this. There was Zamindari system. Okay, this was abolished. Okay, then tenancy reforms that came about. Okay, and land sealing. Have you guys heard of this term, land to the tiller? Okay, it cannot be absentee landlords, but the person who is on that property sort of plowing it and trying to work there, that person should be the one who has access to the land. So for that, the zamindari system was abolished, tenancy reforms was brought in, land sealing was there. Obviously this depends on state to state. Some states did quite well. Kerala did quite well. West Bengal did to a certain extent, but many states did not do a great job at it. So ninth schedule was in which if you bring in land reforms, or certain rules that cannot be you cannot go into basically the Supreme Court cannot go into it, right? However, now it is open to judicial review. Okay, now it is open to judicial review. Do you guys know the reservation percent in Tamil Nadu is 69%? Are you guys aware of this? Within Tamil Nadu, the reservation is 69%, and that rule also has been placed in the ninth schedule. So meaning, technically the Supreme Court, did not have jurisdiction, but obviously now the court can come in and have its judicial review. Similarly, 10th schedule, this deals with anti-defection. Okay, anti-defection. You join from one party and then, you quit that party, Ayaram, Gayaram, that used to be very, in 80s, there used to be a thing where you get elected on one party ticket, then you join another party, and then in the very next day you would probably come back to this party. So the whole lot of things was happening. It was very difficult to manage. So point is, these schedules are important. Remember, so you have to remember only 12 schedules. Okay, just go through the schedules really quick once again, so that it is sort of imprinted in your head. Now let me ask you a quick question. What is the 8th schedule?
Languages which are recognized by the Constitution.
Perfect. And how many languages are there?
22 languages.
Perfect. So you guys are quite good at this. Who was it? I think it was Manvi, and the one before that?
Supriya, sir.
Supriya. Okay. So, and again, so that's excellent. Okay. So 8th language. And what was the last language, last 4 languages to be added? Bodo.
Odia.
It is Bodo, Dogri, and I think Santali, and one more language. I think Maithili. Okay, that was the last one to be added. Okay, so they became officially constitutionally recognized languages. Okay, now 11th and 12th. I'll just give you one more. Okay, 11 and 12. See, 11 and 12 also very easy. Okay, these were added when? For the panchayats, and this is for your municipalities. These tables have taken quite a bit of, my own sort of preparatory time as well in order to remember this. In fact, if you ask me, I would also be able to tell you, who are the ones who were included in the second schedule. So let us say that my second schedule is dealing with, emoluments, allowances, and P for something, privileges. Okay, so these are the 3 ones. Okay, so who are the ones who are involved here, right? You have the president, governor, right? And then you have the speaker, deputy speaker from the lower house, and then you have obviously chairman and the deputy chairman in the Rajya Sabha. Same thing you have for your assembly, and you have it for your council, right? And then you have judges of Supreme Court, High Court, and then you have CAG. So just remember who's involved in that, because third schedule talks about oaths and affirmations. So if it is oath, then again who it is. Even here there are some logic with which you can actually study this. Okay, because if you look at that, come to that chapter, come to that third schedule, see that members, the point number 2 is candidates for election to the parliament. So you stand for contesting in that election, and then you become members of parliament. That means the next round, you also are part of it. And then the ones who have been elected from legislature, right, you also become union minister, you even become a minister, right? Same thing again for your legislature as well. Similar to your schedule 2, you have your High Court and Supreme Court judges as well, right? And then you have your CAG as well. So just try to remember. Okay, now I hope this is sort of clear. So are you comfortable with this table, right? You may not have it completely internalized, but you know what is to be internalized, right? The next table here in your book, you will see it right after this. Okay, now this is also a very important table, right? This is also a very important table. If when we talked about, Indian constitution is a borrowed constitution, okay, or a patchwork. Not my words, okay? It's there in your book itself, or patchwork. What do we mean by all of these things? It is because of this, right? A lot of the features that have that we see in our constitution have been thoughtfully borrowed. Okay, not just borrowed, it has been thoughtfully borrowed, right? So for instance, your federal scheme, governor, the real actual role of the governor, because office of the governor was there, but the actual role of governor, like how we have it right now, okay, the judiciary, the public service commission, emergency provisions, administrative details, all of these things have come from your Government of India Act 1935, about which you would have studied in detail in your history, right? I think you would have studied it in your history, right? In history, you have to study those acts, or in polity first chapter. I don't know where you study it. Okay, you can study it from your polity book, or you can study it from your spectrum. What do you? Which book do you follow for your modern India, modern history?
Spectrum, sir.
Okay, 1784. Then what do we have? 1813. Then 33, and then we have 53, and then I believe we have 61, then 91, 92 somewhere there, right? And then you have 1909, then 1919, and so on and so forth. All right, so if you study these, you will understand. So an important element here is your 1935. So 1935 may, even today, a lot of those features have come into our constitution through your 1935. Similarly, British Constitution. We have parliamentary form of government because we realize that our system is better suited for our country, our society. Parliamentary government is a lot better, right? Rather than have a presidential sort of a system. Okay, because we have very diverse sort of population, and then it is better to give, for a multitude of reasons, right? Parliamentary system is good, rule of law, legislative procedure, single citizenship, right? In America, they don't have a single citizenship. They have dual citizenship. What do you mean by dual citizenship versus single citizenship? It does not mean that, Americans can be a citizen of America, of US, and then they can be a citizen of Britain, which they can, but that is not what dual citizenship is about. Your citizenship there, it is you are part of Indiana state and of USA, the country. You're part of Virginia and you are, part of USA. That is what they mean by dual citizenship. Similarly, the cabinet system, writs, privileges, parliamentary privileges, bicameralism, all of these things have been borrowed from there. Similarly, fundamental rights. What is fundamental rights ka equivalent in your US Constitution?
Bill of Rights.
Perfect. Wonderful. Bill of Rights. Bill of Rights. Okay. Independence of judiciary. Okay. Judicial review. Impeachment of the president. Okay. Removal of Supreme Court and High Court. Post of vice president. Many of these aspects have come from your US, right? Has anybody been impeached in the US? There was a trial of, or they actually wanted Trump to be impeached, right? That again brought focus on impeachment. Similarly, this sort of an episode happened when Bill Clinton was in power. If you guys remember Monica Lewinsky scandal, maybe most of you were not alive then, right? But I'm sure that you must have heard of it. Irish Constitution, right? DPSPs are from your Irish Constitution, okay? And nomination of members to the Rajya Sabha. Okay, we nominate certain members, and who are those members? Whether they belong to arts and literature or social service and sciences, these sort of members can be nominated, right? And method of election of president. So even this aspect is from the Irish Constitution. Canadian Constitution, we have a federation with a stronger center. Now we know this, right? And let us say that there is some power that is not explicitly mentioned, right? Oops, beg your pardon. This is going to go to the center, not for the states. In certain countries that have a stronger state system, or rather than the stronger center, it'll be the opposite. The residuary powers go to the states. Okay, example, states like country like USA. So appointment of state governors by the center. Even here, what do we do? In America, if you see, how is a governor, like how do you become a governor in the US? Does anybody know? Okay, no worries. Although it is not the same exact position, okay, it's not the best sort of a comparison, because in India, the head of the state, okay, most of the real person who's the real head of the state is going to be your chief minister, okay, whereas the governor has certain other role. But the governor in the US, okay, he has to be elected. Okay, so he has, just like a presidential election, they will have an election. So there will be a governor candidate from your Republican Party. There will be another sort of a governor's candidate from the Democratic Party, and then they will go head to head. They will even have these sort of debates, like you have presidential debates. And this is quite interesting, because generally what you see is the president will either be previously a senator, okay, or he will be a governor. Okay, so the senator, I think Biden was a senator. I'm not sure about Biden, right? But if you look at it, Illinois senator was your Barack Obama. Before that, you had George Bush, right? George Bush was the governor of Texas. George. Similarly, your Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton too was a governor, I believe. Right, things like that. So it's very different. So these guys are like contesting for elections, and then they come there. Okay, so just be aware, it's not the exact same terminology. And the fact that you have advisory jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, okay, this comes under your Article 143. Okay, so the president can ask for some sort of Supreme Court to advise on a particular thing. Okay, now is that cast in stone? Does he have to follow it? Now that is something that we'll again take a look. Okay, Australian Constitution, concurrent list. state and the center to sort of share power, freedom of trade, commerce, and intercourse throughout the country. Okay, and joint sitting. So if, for instance, can I ask you a question? Joint sitting is present in your parliament, and then you have it in state legislature. True or false? Joint sitting is present in parliament and state legislature. True or false?
True, I think.
True. So states also can have joint sittings. Okay, anybody else?
True.
Okay. So we'll come back to that because this is also an important chapter, parliament and state legislature. See, first of all, a state should have both your assembly and the state should have the council. Only in those sort of states can we talk about both of them having a possibility of having a joint sitting or something. But you will notice that in the state, assembly has a little more power in comparison to what the Lok Sabha enjoys in comparison or with vis-a-vis Rajya Sabha and the council. So here they did not decide to go with joint sitting, no joint sitting. Whereas in parliament, yes, there is a joint sitting. So what does that mean? Your Rajya Sabha is a little more powerful than the council, because the Rajya Sabha can still force a joint sitting, right? And be present in that sitting and vote for that in that sitting. But however, the council members in the state don't have that same power, despite the fact that they belong to the upper house. Okay, now Germany may suspension of fundamental rights during emergency. Okay, there are certain fundamental rights that can be suspended during your emergencies, depending upon what emergency, not all emergencies, right? That is that. What about the Soviet, right? So India was a lot closer to the Soviet world than it was to America, even during Cold War. What did we take from them? Fundamental duties, ideals of justice, social, economic, political justice, right? You guys have seen, right? Social, we talked about in the previous session, social justice, economic justice, political justice, all of that. From the French Constitution, what have we taken? The fact that it is a republic. Okay, are we a monarchy? Can you tell me one monarchy, please? Monarchy is not your republic.
Oman.
Oman. Is it a monarchy? Is there a king in Oman?
Yeah, the Omani Sultanate.
Okay, then if that is the case, then great. Okay, like your Bahrain, or whether you have, your West Asian countries, right? Not all West Asian countries, the GCC countries, many of them have a king. Okay, that is that. But can you name a country that is a democracy and a monarchy?
Britain.
Okay, so that's a very good example. Okay, wonderful. See, when you come connect it to what you see around, then it becomes easier for you to sort of remember also. Great. And similarly, South African Constitution, we have taken procedure for amendment of the Constitution. Anybody knows what article it is that deals with amendment of the Constitution?
Is it 318?
It is actually 368. Okay, but close enough. Okay. So good. And the Japanese Constitution, procedure established by law. Okay, procedure procedure established by law. Okay, there are two things: procedure established by law and due process of law. Okay, due process of law is by the US, procedure established by law in Japan and India. Okay, so do you understand that this table is important? And if it is important, what do you have to keep in mind? What have we borrowed and from whom? What does it mean? Whom have we borrowed it from? Okay, so these are elements that you want to keep in mind. Okay, so if I just move to the next slide and just quiz you once. Okay, at least let us see if it is there in your short-term memory, guys. And I want participation. If you can just put it in the chat window from what you remember. Suspension of fundamental rights.
Germany, sir.
Good. Who was this? Is it still Manvi? Supriya. Okay. Sorry. Okay, got it. So then Germany is correct. Okay, so good memory. Fundamental duties.
USSR. Russia. Soviet Union.
Soviet Union. Okay, correct. Okay, let's make it a little tricky. Procedure established by law.
Japan.
Excellent. Are you guys answering this based on what you've just read, or you already have this, sort of ingrained in your memory by now?
Oh, I've understood it, sir.
Okay, great. DPSP.
Irish Constitution.
Irish, sir.
Perfect, perfect. Single citizenship. We talked about who is not having single citizenship, and we did not go with them, but we borrowed it from
US.
somebody else. No.
British.
Yeah,
British.
yeah. Okay, so US, they have dual citizenship. Okay, one last one. Okay, one last one. Let me see if I can find a nomination of members to Rajya Sabha.
Irish, sir.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, so you guys have got it. This is a very, very important table. Okay, this is a very, very important table. Now let's look at some questions. Okay, let's take a look at some questions. Which of the following is not a salient feature of the Constitution? Because this chapter talks about what are the salient features. Option A, written constitution and supremacy of the Constitution, or quasi-federal structure, committed judiciary, distribution of powers.
Committed judiciary.
Okay, so one vote for committed judiciary. Okay, it's which one is not. Okay, so remember that. So there is somebody saying this. Okay,
So is it option B?
option B, quasi-federal structure. Okay, good. Next. It's okay, guys, even if you get it wrong. Okay, it's better you get things wrong now, and so that you're better off later.
Option C, sir.
Option C. Okay. Okay, I'm seeing more of you coming here. In fact, this is the answer. See, when you have a question like this, and especially when you see a not, first thing that you want to do, okay, is that you highlight this not, okay, because it could be one of those tricks that you should not fall for. So what you want to do is, generally when we read this, our minds work in this particular manner, right? Is this correct or not? If the question is this a salient feature? Yes, written constitution. Of course, you have a written constitution. It's a huge, bulky constitution. Is constitution supreme? Yes, it is supreme, right? But it can be amended, but it is still supreme. Okay, quasi-federal structure. Yes, there is quasi-federal structure, because though we call it federal, right? If you go to your chapter number 3, in that there is one of the salient features is federalism, and so in that they say it is federal, but still the center has a lot of power in comparison to the states, so it is not technically federal. So for that, there is a scholar who calls it as quasi-federal structure. So it is federal, but it is like quasi means like pseudo, okay, something like that. Okay, so that is also correct. Committed judiciary. No, committed judiciary is not a salient feature of our constitution. Distribution of powers, of course we saw it in 7th schedule. So what does committed judiciary mean? I'll come to that. So then you basically go here and then say which one is not. So just write the opposite. So this is not, this is not, this is not. So this is the answer. If you go in the step-by-step method, you will not make this mistake. Okay, so committed judiciary is the one. And what is your committed judiciary? In this, we have seen that we do not have a committed judiciary. We have a judiciary that is independent judiciary. Independent and integrated. Integrated does not matter here, or it is not so important for this context. Integrated judiciary. So committed judiciary refers to judiciary which is committed to uphold the policies of the government. Is the job of the Supreme Court to uphold the policies of the government in power? Are they supposed to interpret the laws and the constitution in a way that is more palatable or more favorable to the government in power. In fact, this is an article, this is a good article, guys, that I sort of liked. I'll send it to you guys. I've not gotten your contact information yet. I'll send it to you. In fact, what happens is there was a speech that was given by Modi, right? PM Modi, honorable prime minister, in which he says that, you know, the government and the court should be, and I'm obviously rephrasing what he has said, okay, or paraphrasing what he had said. He basically says that, you know, the government and the judiciary should be more or less on the same page. So then one of the judges, he makes a note, right? He makes a note, and this basically happened during the constitutional day. Okay, constitutional day. So the person who writes about this, he says that no, that is not the job. We are not committed judiciary. We are independent judiciary. So in a system of checks and balances, right? Checks and balances. Matlab, what is checks and balance? If I do something wrong, you are supposed to correct me in this. If you do something wrong, I will correct you in that. Right? So a checks and balance. So if the government, so what are the three different wings here? So we have the executive, right? And then we have the legislature. And then we have the judiciary, right? Now, let us say, you know, the government does something. It came out with a policy, okay? Policy not in line with constitution. Now, what is the job of the judiciary? Its job is to uphold the new rules of this government, because let us say this government has come in because people have voted for it, or does it mean that it has to uphold the principles that are mentioned in the constitution? These guys are independent. They can strike it down using judicial review. Okay, their job is not to support the government. If the government does something wrong, then these guys have to sort of be vigilant and sort of strike it down. Right? Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. Let's look at another question. Yeah.
So the recent laws in Poland suggest that they're going towards a committed judiciary. Is that true?
What is happening in Poland? I have not read about what is happening in Poland.
The laws have changed so that the judiciary is supposed to uphold the government. So does that mean it's a committed judiciary?
Actually, I have not read enough about it to comment on it. But however, what you are saying is true, then that will be a good example of committed judiciary, and I'll tell you why. Right? See, committed judiciary will generally happen in one of these European countries. They make a very good sort of a sample for it, because in Europe, how the nations are formed is that, you know, Poland means Polish people. Okay, German means Germany mein German, right? So it is like one sort of an ethnic group forming most of it, right? Except for, let's say, 10% of the ethnic, the minorities who are more of immigrants and all of that. In these sort of countries, they have, unlike your country like India, where there is a lot of diversity, right? A lot of people have different conception of what, you know, how the country should be governed, right? When, you know, the current party has more than 300 seats, I believe, right? You know, they still had like what, 35% approximately, I don't know the exact numbers, okay, only 35%. So that means 65% of the people did not vote for this political party to be in power, right? Meaning what? It is not, I'm not talking about the mandate is excellent mandate, okay, in comparison to all of the history, but it means that India we have many different voices. Okay, so policy is not in line with the constitution, the chances are much higher. The judiciary has a particular role. But in countries like this, in case what you're saying is true, that would actually be a good sort of a case for, you know, a committed judiciary. I wonder how that happened. I'm just curious to see. I'll read on this.
Yes, and the EU is against it actually.
EU's what?
EU is against it actually.
Because it goes against, you know, the liberal principles, right? It goes against liberal principles. See, even when in America, if you see, this is a very good example. Okay, in America, you have something called the Supreme Court. Okay, slightly different from the Supreme Court of India. Supreme Court. Okay, so the appointment is done by president, and these guys are not ones who retire at 65. So this is a life posting. So you can be in power for 8 years, but unless these guys don't die. In fact, like recently there was one person who retired. They don't even generally retire. They will be like a Supreme Court judge at the age of 85, 86, 88, and then they still be doing this job. So let us say these are the bodies, these are the persons, okay, because the names don't matter. So what they try to do is, let us say I'm going to, so if it is this, okay, let us say this is more of liberal guys, liberal voices. This will be more of conservative voices. Okay, so these guys, the president, when given a chance, they want to sort of keep the Supreme Court stacked in such a way that the policies they bring will sort of be upheld. Okay, or at least it will not be struck down. So Supreme Court has the power to strike it down, and that is why they want to place a judge that is, sort of predisposed with those sort of principles, conservative principles, liberal principles. Right? Is that sort of clear? It's a very good example. You guys can just read on that as well. Okay, but good point. Who was this? Was it Naveen?
Rahul.
Rahul. Okay, great. Let's try another one. Okay, the Indian Constitution is an unwritten constitution, a written constitution, and largely based on Government of India Act 1935, a gift of British Parliament. Again, just go for it.
Option B, sir.
Somebody said B.
B, sir.
Who was that? So
Yeah,
somebody
sir.
said B. Somebody said B. Okay, 2 Bs. Somebody wants to go for something else?
B, sir.
B. B for Bombay or D for Delhi?
B, Bombay.
Bombay. Okay, great. Okay, so the answer is correct. Right. So how do we, what did we say? We're going to go with process of elimination, right? Process of elimination. And a lot of these things will be direct memory related. Okay. Is Indian Constitution a written constitution or unwritten constitution? You cannot have an option in which 1 and 2 are both there in the option. And thankfully, we don't have that. Obviously, we know this is incorrect. Okay. A written constitution, this is right. So far, what do I have? I have one part of the answer. This cannot be the answer. D. So this cannot be part of the answer. What about my A and B? They're still part of the answer. Now, the next one is largely based on Government of India Act or a gift of British Parliament, right? So this is true, right? Because the very first thing that we saw in that table, and if I can just take you back, I think it is page number 10. If you look at this very first thing, you see a large chunk of these things: federal structures, judiciary, public service commission, emergency provisions, governor. All of these things have come from your Government of India Act. So this cannot be false, right? It cannot be false. So if that cannot be false, then 2 and 3. What about 4? Is it a gift? Now the question, it really depends on whom you ask, right? The British might feel that, but British Parliament had very little role, right? They would set up a committee. If you look at the Indian history from 1940 till 1947, until we get our independence, you will notice that there are lots and lots of things happening, action-packed time, very like tumultuous activities. So, starting from your August of Cripps mission, Quit India, right? Cabinet mission. Okay, before that you have like, what is that, Rajagopalachari, whole lot of things happening. So this is like, okay, they help us sort of make a decision, right? But however, this cannot be a gift, right? Our own Constituent Assembly, members of the Indian Constituent Assembly, our leaders who had been elected or were appointed. Unfortunately, some of them were appointees and not elected members. They had come out with this responsibility of making the written constitution. So hence, it is going to be B. So perfect. So you guys are all correct in that regard. Next. Now, this is a question that again you guys can solve. Try to see if you can solve this without taking a look at what I had just mentioned, but based on your memory. If not, you can take a look at that table again, 3.10. The second schedule of the Constitution does not. Okay, again, one of those questions which has a not element.
Sir, D.
Option D.
It's very quick. Okay, there are 2 of you.
Option D, sir.
That is 3 of you. Anybody else? Perfect. Okay, so answer is right. So again, if you remember, we said president and the governor. Okay, speaker, and then the deputy speaker, right? And then we had same thing for Rajya Sabha. We had the CAG guys, and then we had the judges of Supreme Court and High Court. We don't have UPSC member, right? So just be aware. So what does this mean? That table is important. That table is supremely important. And what does it mean? Is it like very logic or is analytical sort of question? No, right? These are things that by ensuring that you've spent a good amount of time with that book, okay, by revising, by opening it, closing it, reading it, recalling it, okay, you have very good chance. And that is why I say that up to 13 out of 15 or 18 out of 20 easily you can score. Okay, 30, 40 marks, 30, 35 marks at least you can easily capture right from your polity. Okay, so so that is that. Again, a question that is not. Again, just once again, if I may come here, the way to go about this is, do not go for this not, because it might be confusing. Is this guy part of second schedule? Yes. This guy part? Yes. Is this guy part? Yes. Is this guy? No. So then incorporate the no, just change it. So that means only this guy. So that means this is the answer. A lot of times we tend to make a mistake, especially in questions where it is 1 and 4, 2 and 3, right? One we might choose that is correct, and the other one might be something like this. So you do not want to make a mistake like that. So if you can just, where you have this not, if you can just create a system in which you try to think of answer in the way our mind is conditioned in saying, okay, we do not have a negative in our mind, right? So we look at, is it right or wrong? So we look at, okay, yes, this is right, wrong. And then you just convert it to the opposite, and that will be part of your answer. So that way, unnecessarily you may not miss 1-2 questions. A lot of people do make a silly mistake in the questions that are deemed not, due to 2 reasons. Either they didn't see, or they sort of got confused, or they confused in marking time. Okay, now take a look at this. Languages, oaths and affirmations, allocation of seats in the Council of States, and disqualification on the ground of anti-defection.
Option B.
B, sir.
Option B, sir.
Okay, did you guys go with the method that I just told you? Languages,
sir.
8th schedule, yes. Oath and affirmation, second.
Third, sir.
It's third.
Once again, somebody said second schedule. 2 people said second schedule. Okay. Allocation of seats in the Council of State. Okay. Oath and affirmation is third. Right? So this is given as second. So this is basically wrong. So finally, your answer is going to be, this is wrong. This is right. Wrong. Wrong. Option B. Mark kar do. Right? So that is done. So just remember this. Okay. So if you remember this thing, it should be very, very clear. So if you see a question that has something to do with the schedules, by now, even without reading the question, you should have that confidence, 2 marks done. Okay. I'm going to add 2 marks to my final score. As simple as that. Okay. So it's second schedule, okay, because it is part of the third schedule. Okay. Secularism means the state has no recognized state of religion. Secularism means state treats all religion equally. Secularism means that the state regulates the relation of man and God, or man with God.
1 and 2, sir.
Option B.
Option B is
Option
1 and
B,
2.
sir.
1, 2, 3. Okay, perfect. Okay, it is right. Why do you say third option is wrong? Yake.
It can't intervene with, I mean, what do you call it? I mean, state cannot intervene with a person's belief or the religion they may follow.
Okay. That is good. Okay, that is good. Is that? Can you please tell your name again?
Yeah, sir.
Priya. Okay. Fine. See, but Indian secularism is slightly different from Western secularism. In Western secularism, generally they will have the state has absolutely no role. Okay, complete separation of church and state. Have you heard of this? In India, it is not like this. India may one arm distance with all. So if I provide something for one religion, it means that you want to do the same thing for the others, right? So we don't have this where we completely separate the state and the church, or India may any sort of religion. Generally, this used to happen because even if the state takes a policy, let us say 100, 200 years ago, right? If the state takes a position, if the church says no, the state policy is now going to be good enough because people will not follow, because religion is more important than because your accountability to somebody sitting high up there, up in the sky, is a lot more, or a little more, at least it brings a lot more fear in people than elected representatives, right? For instance, have you guys heard of this debate of pro-life versus pro-choice? What is pro-life versus pro-choice? Okay, this is a it's a pretty big deal, okay, especially in the US. I don't know if you guys remember a few years ago, maybe like 6-7 years ago, in Ireland, there was an Indian lady, and I believe she was a dentist or something like that. I don't recall, but I want to say she's actually from Karnataka. Now she was there, and she had some complication during childbirth, okay, or a pregnancy related complication, and then, but in that country, a Catholic country, they had a policy that was sort of against abortion. So in that respect, what happened was, the mother died, the child died. I think that's what had finally happened, and this caused a lot of uproar in our country. But their country, their principles, their sort of ways of looking at it, because for the Catholics, especially the ones who certain forms of Christianity, they're against abortion. They look at it as death of a child or death of an unborn child is also a murder. Now the opposite. Now this is a position that is calibrated. It's basically the church has a role here, right? It is a church sort of position. Now if you're extremely religious, then you will probably agree with it. Now pro-life, that is pro-life. Pro-choice is that a woman should have an option, right? The woman should have an option. What if I am a woman and I'm 17 years old and I get pregnant? Now, it does not mean that, because of whatever mistake that has taken place, it should mean that, my life should completely, be affected by it. Okay, a 17-year-old mother having, giving birth to a child, caring for that particular child means her education, all of those things are going to be, there'll be a full stop in many of those. It's going to be very difficult for her to have a normal life, in comparison to, let's say, the classmates that she had. So she should have a choice. Okay, so this particular position has to do again with separate the ideas of the church. So things like that. Okay, so just keep this in mind. Western secularism, Indian secularism में थोड़ा फर्क है. Okay. All right. 7th schedule, really quick. Let's see who's the first one.
Option C.
Okay, perfect. So I think it's time to skip some of these questions because I feel from this particular chapter, you're going to be okay. I think you'll be fine. Take a look at this. Schedule 7 does deal with division of powers between the center and the states, and also there will be certain ones that are going to be shared between the center and the states.
Option D.
B for Bombay?
D for dog.
Okay.
Option A, sir.
Option A.
All are correct, sir. I mean, 1, 2, 3.
So
Yes,
who was
sir.
the one? Yes, yeah, go ahead, please. Continue, Madi. Somebody was saying something.
All are correct, sir.
All are correct. Okay. Can somebody who's just said D is the answer, can you just tell me why did you go with 2 is wrong? Basically 1 and 3 now. Why did you say 2 is wrong?
So because previously you explained that though they mention is federal, but it was quasi-federal type of government that we follow.
That's excellent. Go to page number in salient features. Point number 4. Federal system, okay, but with unitary bias. Unitary means bias towards center. Do you guys see this? The heading of the point itself means that it has got a bias towards the center, right? So it is not 100% sort of a federal system. And why do we say this? Because the center is strong. There is a single constitution. You don't have constitution for the state. There is only single citizenship. You don't have a citizenship towards your state. There's no Karnataka citizenship, right? Do you have any document that shows that you're a Karnataka citizen? No, that is just a place of residence. You can have that same residence whether you're in Chennai or Coimbatore or Kochi or Delhi or Bombay or even Nagaland or something like that. Totally fine. Okay, integrated judiciary, appointment of the governor by the center, all of those points that you see there. So federal, but however, federal but unitary in spirit or quasi-federal. Okay, so hence the strictly portion is incorrect. And why did he do this, Ambedkar ji? So he did this because of certain reasons, right? India may, when we are forming the constitution, we are still trying to get states to become part of India, right? Jamnagar in your Gujarat was still, sort of a different. It was a kingdom, right? It was a princely state, and they wanted to go. Kerala, in fact, to a certain extent, Travancore Travancore, they wanted to go and be independent. Hyderabad wanted to become independent. Jammu Kashmir wanted to be independent. So they wanted to ensure that, okay, let's keep them all together for, and for that we need a strong center. Okay, so remember this. Okay, so it's in fact, this is what I thought you guys would make a mistake with. Okay, so now that it is there, now you will not make this mistake again. Okay, good.
All right, guys, so that brings us to the close of our video. Thank you for watching, and I hope that you found the video to be useful. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the very next video.